Now, before I start getting all heartbroken and sad about last week's episode again, I'm going to dive right into Bleeding Cool's review of Castle Rock's 8th episode, Past Perfect. And this is what we call a setup episode. Good episode. I think it'll be a better episode when I see what happens with episodes 9 and 10. But it feels like after the emotional wallop of last episode, this is really now meant to set up a lot of the keys going into the final two episodes. Not that it was an incomplete episode, not that it was a disappointing episode, not by any stretch of the imagination. You'll see when I cover some of the highlights, though, that some people are saying it's disjointed. It could possibly be, but again, I hold out faith considering what the previous 7 episodes have given us, that they're setting us up for something strong in the final 2. But here's some of the things to keep in mind. First, we get Gordon and Lilith. We get a return of a historian and his wife, the ones who moved into Castle Rock in the beginning of the season. Apparently, they're looking to start over by buying a bed and breakfast there and turning it into essentially kind of a morbid tourism type thing where people get a chance to stay and live in areas where actual murders took place. And I think it's very interesting, too. They address the issue of looking up to buy more property around Castle Rock, which I thought was very, very interesting. But again, we have an instance where two people who are escaping the sins of their past. She clearly hasn't been completely faithful to him. He clearly has some anger issues that are coming into play. So, of course, where else would you rather go than Castle Rock? Castle Rock, who we see in this episode, my gut feeling is it's not a matter of Castle Rock making people bad or making people evil. I think it just brings out the basic things in them, and whether people make choices or succumb to them or not, I think is their call. I think Castle Rock may be too easy to blame for the frailties and the bad choices that we make, because think about it, a lot of Stephen King's works are based on the idea of people making really bad decisions. The other thing I want to reference, too, is whenever I hear Gordon, I always think of the horror movie Session 9, so please keep that in mind. And also, the actor playing Gordon, Mark Herlick, I want to make sure I get that right. He's also tearing it up big time on Preacher as God/latex-wearing dog. You'll know what I'm talking about if you're watching the show. But again, I think they did a great job in representing what Castle Rock is all about, which is it just makes wounded people put into places where they can make bad decisions. And again, not that they don't have the choice to make good decisions, but there's just something about it that flares up the bad. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought seeing Odin Branch in the woods with a screwdriver in his eye, I thought raises a lot of questions. Henry's visions, and I don't know if this is because I'm a fan of Lost and have gotten so used to it, but very curious to see, because of the way the schismas are working, are we seeing flashbacks? Are we seeing also flash forwards? And also, are we seeing some flash sideways? You know, that's where I think things are getting very interesting, because I'm holding on to, well, you know what? I'll get to that in a second. Heartbreaking scene, though. We knew it was going to have to come. The scene between Henry and Ruth, where Ruth believes it's Reverend Devers, the one she shot finally to protect Henry. Of course, we're not sure if she really is protecting Henry from something or not. And the heartbreak of Wendell overhearing the conversation. Again, I just thought it was necessary, it was needed, and I think it was a nice little quiet moment in an episode that didn't seem to have a lot of quiet moments, and I mean that in a good way. The kid, much more talkative and a lot more fascinating in this episode. Interesting that he's still bearing the wound from Ruth. So I think that's a very interesting part, and there's going to be some other interesting parts that are going to come up in the quotes that I'm going to be talking about in a minute. I think it's interesting that Henry noticed that in one of the paintings that were in Lacey's home that are now all over the bed and breakfast, that he was wearing the same sweater that Henry was in the Have You Seen Him posters when he was abducted. Very interesting connection there also. The issue with Molly, we already know Molly has connection with Henry, but this idea now that the kid knows so much about Molly and knows so much about what it was like for her growing up and everything else, and saying to her, I was there while all this was going on, raises a very interesting question I'm going to talk about when we get to the quotes. Jackie Torrance, nice to see her be more involved this season. I'd like to see her taking a much more active role, more of the Veronica Mars investigator of the macabre. I love the scene where she's kind of educating the historian about how he got the axe wrong. Again, Jane Levy, I think there's just a lot of potential for Jackie Torrance to have her own single episode. I would love to see that. And Wendell, when we talk about the bad decisions, at the end of the day, this is one of the instances where I'm not sure if Wendell had a decision to make or not. I mean, forces working against them, the dead bird flying into the front of the bus, the fact that he's getting the buzzing that his father has gotten and many others have gotten in the past. Very interested to see where all of this is going to tie in. Again, a lot of forward momentum on this episode. I think we're going to be getting a lot more answers going into the final 2 episodes. I want to know where, for example, where's Willie at this point? And I noticed that we have somebody missing in action. But I want to get to the quotes because that's going to cover a couple things too. Can't we say it never happened? And that's Lilith to Gordon in regards to referencing her extramarital affair. And it's interesting, when Gordon goes all crazy on their first boarders, it's an interesting response she gives to him when he's trying to explain why he did what he did. I'm sorry you're not crazy. The words Molly needed to hear from Henry after all of these episodes. I'm hoping it's not these final goodbye type words that are being said, but it had that ring to it. I'm going to skip over the one because the one is most important. He tried to be a good man. Sometimes he was. Henry in reference to Alan Pangborn. And it is heartbreaking because at the end of the day, Alan tried to do best to do what he could for Castle Rock. My hope is that in his death, he wasn't making a mistake he didn't realize. I was there, out in the woods. That's where you died. The kid to Molly, really walking her through what her childhood was like. And interesting in the sense that Molly's been having visions also. In one of her visions towards the end of the episode, she sees a vision of herself in the woods and she sees a vision of herself dead. And for some reason, the kid is seeing that also. Now, the final quote I think is the most important. I waited for you. I waited 27 years. I rescued you from that basement. I didn't ask for any of this. Fascinating situation, because I think, again, it ties into this belief that I have personally is we don't know if the kid is a good guy or bad guy. And they make a very interesting point in the episode by referencing, like, he doesn't actually do anything. People just seem to do the stuff for him. I don't know if they're doing it for him or if they're just doing what is in their nature. Again, this idea of making a choice. You can either be the angel or you can be the devil. Very curious to see, and not wanting any of this. Again, I'm going to put my theory out there. It would be really messed up if they've kept an angel locked up for 27 years. Or I don't even want to go with my broader theory, which is that he essentially left God locked up for 27 years because Castle Rock is just that pure evil. But again, we're going to be going into the final 2 episodes. I'm very, very much looking forward to see where they're going to be going with again, a season that's going to have to wrap up since we've already been told the second season is going to be a completely different story. So keeping fingers crossed that they land this plane successfully.